What's up, YouTube? So I wanted to talk about how I normally edit my videos, right? I don't even normally edit most of my stuff because if it gets cut out of my stream, then I don't usually edit it at all because it's just too much. It's just too much work. It's just too much work when I gotta go to work. like so and then to be time sensitive. Anyway, regardless, I always try to find ways to do some type of editing, right? So when I'm recording stuff lately, I've been playing Starfield. I've been playing Star Citizen, and I've done this with a bunch of other games ever since I started doing it in Division Two, and not Division Two like super long time ago, but recently I started playing Division Two again, and I played through all of the game. I played through the whole game, played through, and I just didn't play through the DLC yet. That's the only thing I didn't do. Just beat the base game, and then I did it in Destiny Two, and then I did it in I think I did it in one other game, but any type of game that I record that has a lot of dead space in the middle of it or dead space anywhere while you're not doing anything, while you're just walking around, I try to do this type of editing, right? Or when I'm not talking or saying anything, and it gives you a little bit more freedom and uh it takes a little bit of the stress off of wanting to be perfect while you're recording stuff, right? Like you want to do everything, you want to keep the pace moving and everything without having to do that and then having to edit all of that stuff out, like edit all the dead space out afterwards. So this cuts down on a lot of that. So even if you wanted to still edit further and maybe cut it up and maybe add things to it, this could save a lot of time. So I have this foot pedal. You saw it in the thumbnail. I have this foot pedal, and this is linked to my stream PC or my recording PC or whatever you want to call it. And this is on the floor under the computer, and I use a foot pedal because when I'm streaming, I usually have the camera on my Azeron. I used to have it on both my Azeron and my mouse at one point, but um so basically what I was using a foot pedal for was to not make it completely obvious when I was making cuts. Because when I started doing this in Division 2 or in Destiny, I was using a button on the side of my mouse. So anytime I made a cut, you would see my hand reach over to the button and then the cut would happen and I would release the button, right? Cuz that was the cut. I was pressing the button and then pressing it again to pressing it to pause the recording and then pressing it again to unpause the recording, right? To make it record again, right? And it would it kind of felt like breaking the fourth wall because it was just like you could literally look and see exactly when I'm making cuts just by my hand clicking the button. Click, cut, click, cut, click, cut, right? So I was using this like button right here on the side of this mouse, right? So that's the reason why I started using a foot pedal to make it not obvious that I was doing that. So because it's on the floor and you can't see it, all I'm doing is like, okay, I finished talking, or I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and then I hit the button. The only problem that I ran into while doing this is that when you're running, like in a video game, right? Any video game and you're running and you're holding shift, right? Shift is a modifier. So it modifies whatever other button you press it with, right? Like clearly that's what it does. But the problem that I ran into was that I was using the F10 button as my I was using the F10 button as my pause record pause and unpause record button, right? For OBS. But I was also on the same PC. So like if you're not on the same PC, this is not going to matter. But if you're recording or you're uh streaming on the same computer that you're playing on, this is good you're going to run into this problem if you decide to do this. You're going to have to change your crouch if it's control and change your shift if it's or change your sprint if it's shift to something else. Um, the only reason why I was able to do this without it really affecting much was because I used the Azeron and the Azeron, even though I'm pressing this button, it's whatever button I want it to be. So I usually normally use shift for sprint, and I would just set the button on the Azeron to sprint. But because it's a modifier button, I don't want shift, so I just change it to anything else. My run would be like semicolon or whatever, but I would set the button that I would normally use for run on my Azeron to semicolon, and that would be my sprint now. So now when I'm pressing that and I press F10 at the same time, the button is not modifying the F10 button. But when I'm pressing down shift and I'm holding shift to run, I'm holding shift to run, and you press F10, you're pressing shift F10 and not just F10. So because you're pressing shift F10, the F10 does not pause the recording or start the recording when you're holding shift. So you will always have to let go of shift, press your pause record button, and then make sure that you're not running. So then I had to start thinking, okay, well, this is stuff that I ran into while doing this in the beginning of, trying this out in Division 2. And then it became this is not the problem, right? Me pressing this button is not the problem with you seeing me make the cuts. It would be you see my character stop running, and then you see my character running again after the cut. So it was just like, it didn't feel seamless, right? It always felt like, okay, my character stopped running and then there's a cut. So I was like, okay, that doesn't look right. And then I would have to go back in and edit it out anyway if I was going to do that, but I didn't do that. I wanted to figure out how to make this more fluent and more natural, like it was an edit that somebody did in post rather than while they were playing the game. So that's what I did. I changed my sprint to something else. But something else you might be able to do in games is if you don't use an Azeron and you use a keyboard, either I mean, if your camera is not on your mouse, then you can just use your mouse and do the same thing. Make your sprint, or make your sprint into toggle, right? So that way, when you're running, you toggle sprint, and then you just tap shift so that you start running. And you'll be running, and then you won't have to hold down shift. And then when you want to make a cut, you can make a cut, right? So like the whole point for that was your character would be running, there would be a cut, and then your character would still be running, right? Like to make it more fluid, more fluid cut, because it looked really jarring when your character would stop running and then be running again, stop running and then be running again, and started to get noticeable. So I was like, I don't want to do that. So now, because I use the Azeron, it helps with that. But also because I use it on a separate computer. So the separate computer just fixes that completely. I don't even have to worry about the shift button thing because separate computer. Anyway, foot pedal, really good. Foot pedal is really good for editing your video while you're playing the game. It is a huge time saver, especially if you're the type of person you want to get content out, and you want to edit down some of the episodes, or edit down some of the stuff that you normally do in your games. So, and then have like shorter episodes, because like that's what I did with I've been playing Star Citizen, and my first video was about an hour and something, which I'm not really mad about. I'm not mad at, because I'm like, there are people that will watch the hour-long video. There are people that watched it. That my first Star Citizen video that I put out a couple of days ago has like 200, maybe 300 something views right now, and that was only I think it got 129 views in a couple of hours, which for me is good. That's really good, and it was an hour or more long. So great. The next video I did, it was like 50 minutes or something like that, and it was a little bit shorter. Next video was like 23 minutes. Only because like I only did one thing. I went and did it. I was already almost there, and then I did the mission, finished the mission, then finished off the video, right? So like it was a shorter video. But like my videos will probably vary in time or whatever, depending on what I'm doing, or and just trying to do a bunch of, different interesting things in the game. Maybe if I'm just sitting there playing for an extended period of time, then it might be a little bit longer, with cuts and stuff like that. So it will still keep the momentum moving forward a little faster than if I wasn't cutting out, stuff during the time that I was playing. Then I can just upload it, make my thumbnail, boom, throw it out there. But yeah, and then you get better and better at it as you do it more. So using the foot pedal is something you might want to look into if you want to start like editing your stuff while you're playing the game to cut out all that dead space and stuff like that. And then if you want to add stuff to it afterwards, you can, but I usually don't. Maybe down the line I will, but right now I don't. All right. So I just want to talk about this foot pedal thing because I know some people might maybe be curious about it, or like I don't even know if anybody's really thinking about the cuts. Maybe some content creators out there saw my stuff and they was like, I wonder how he edits his videos, or I wonder how he does his cuts. But probably not, because it doesn't look any different than if you were to do it in post. But it does save you a lot of time if you do it this way. So, yeah. All right. That's all I want to talk about. Peace.